The first thing I'd like to do on this order of operations problem is just go ahead and change all of my numbers to fractions. So this one right here especially, I don't want to keep my decimals in there since I have fractions. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. You could change that to 25 over 100, 25 hundredths, but then of course that will simplify down to 1/4. And I think a lot of people will kind of memorize that anyway, that that's really 1/4. And it's up to you if you want to leave it at that step or if you want to kind of change some other things here. It might be useful to go ahead and change some other things here. So like 6, I could write that as a fraction simply by putting it over 1. That might be helpful. It might also be helpful to go ahead and change this mixed number to an improper fraction, especially since we are going to be doing multiplication there. We wouldn't want to leave that as a mixed number. So I could do 2 times 9, which is 18, plus 4 is 22. So that's actually 22 over 9. So just kind of cleaning things up before we start getting everything as a nice fraction. All right, we actually have 2 grouping symbols here. So we have a parentheses and we have square brackets. Square brackets are the same thing as a parentheses, so it really makes no difference whether they use a parentheses there or a bracket. However, we would always do the innermost grouping symbol first. So the first thing I'm going to do here is the multiplication of 22/9 times 1/4. So I could simply multiply across. 22 times 1 is 22, and then 9 times 4 is 36. So I get 22 over 36. And it doesn't hurt to leave that parentheses there. You also wouldn't have to have it there. So at this point, it's really just a placeholder. So if you want to get rid of the parentheses, you certainly can. And then it's up to you at this point, again, if you want to leave this as 22 over 36, it might be useful to go ahead and simplify that. I know 2 goes into these evenly. 22 divided by 2 is 11. 36 divided by 2 is 18. It's just easier working with some smaller numbers. All right, so then I want to do, I'm still in my grouping step. I'm still needing to do what's inside the square brackets. So we can do keep, change, flip, or common denominator method, any method that you like here. I'm going to go ahead and use the common denominator method. So between 6 and 18, the common denominator would be 18. So if I multiply both the top and the bottom of 5 6 by 3, that should do it. So 5 times 3 is 15, and 6 times 3 is 18. And now I've got a common denominator. And so what I would do then is simply divide my numerators and divide my denominators. Of course, when you divide the denominators, 18 divided by 18 is just 1. And putting something over 1, I don't really need to show that 1. So this really just becomes 15 divided by 11 because the denominators will go away since they're the same. So 15 divided by 11 would probably just be easiest if I just wrote that as a fraction, 15 over 11. And at this point, we could go ahead and get rid of the square brackets. And now we're ready to move on past the grouping step. So parentheses are first, or any grouping symbols. Then we move on to exponents. This problem does not have exponents. The next thing is we move on to multiplication and division. In this case, we are doing the multiplication first, but not because you always do multiplication first. Instead, it's because it's on the left, right? So multiplication and division are done together from left to right. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply 5/11 times 6 over 1 first. Multiply across. 5 times 6 is 30. 11 times 1 is 11. So I'll get 30 over 11. And then all that's left now is just to divide. There's no addition and subtraction on this one. Since I've already got a common denominator, I'm just going to do it that way. So really, if I divide the denominators here, they just go away because anything divided by itself is 1. So this is really 30 divided by 15. If you want to write that as a fraction, you can. Or in this case, it works out evenly. So if you want to just leave it as 30 divided by 15, that works just fine. And 30 divided by 15 is 2. Typical math problem, complicated problem, simple solution.